I still just, I have the idea like you have where I have a desk up in my room where I call. I just got to go over and call.
Yeah. So,
And
have you gone up and called before? Have you structured it to a point where you've been able to do it?
yeah, I've done once. I've made 12, 15 phone calls,
Mm-hmm.
talked to a couple people,
Okay.
but
I appreciate your honesty on that, man. Because in coaching people, right? It's all about transparency and authenticity. And if we, sometimes people go, "Oh yeah, I'm doing it," and and they're not. You're, by saying, "Yeah, I did 12 calls, but that's the best I did," right? And that's good because that's 12 more than you've probably ever done before, right?
yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So that's not a negative, right? That's a, hey, man, I actually did 12. So that day that you did 12 calls, what was your day like? What time of day did you do it? What did you do before and after? What was your experiences?
I did that mid-morning. And so we got back from vacation. I haven't called in my plan objective to call it like between 3 and 5.
Okay. So between 3 and 5. And
that way I'm home. Yeah, I'm home and I'm not out and about goofing around and doing stuff I shouldn't be doing.
So you did it at mid-morning, like between 10 o'clock and 12 o'clock?
I believe, yeah.
Okay.
It was mid-morning.
Okay. What was your precursor to that? How did you set yourself up prior to going in that day?
Again, I was upstairs at that little desk I set up. And I turned stuff off, or I was in land voice. And at that time, I don't think we had the speed dial, or we weren't able to get the speed dial. I had to dial, and I was able to dial. And I talked to one guy. It was an older guy. Said he's never going to sell, and a handful of messages.
Yeah.
Nobody called me back. So.
Did you skip?
And this was.
Go ahead.
Oh.
Go ahead. Sorry.
This was my managing broker and myself and my brother. We partnered up on a fix and flip. So I called. I did an area around there. Numbers that I called.
Okay.
But when I call, I'm going to do an area around where I live.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm going to call. Learn. I can do kind of pointed Facebook ads.
Yeah.
And then also, it's close to my house. Maybe door knock. But I remember that one model you did, and that guy door knocked. He was good at it, but I know that takes a lot of time. But and then I guess marketing possibly the money comes in. So
okay. The day before or the time before you made those calls, you were successful making those calls. Did you time block it into your calendar, like the calendar exercise?
I did. I have, yes.
Yeah.
And I, to be honest again with you, I need to time block my calendar for the 3 to 5 or when I want to call.
There you go. Yep, exactly. Because if it's not in our calendar, we really just don't have a plan, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, there's a solution, right? Is to get into that calendaring exercise, set the time aside, be prepared, right? Does anybody else have any suggestions for that? Because this is an ongoing challenge for all of us. I mean, I'm telling you, 20 years in the business, and when it's time for me to hunker down and make my calls, right? And believe it or not, even 20 years later, you still have to make calls. And I've been in sales in one aspect or another for 20 years, and you still have to pick up the telephone, right? And it still takes the same discipline of time blocking it out, having a plan. So does anybody else have some suggestions? You can raise your hand and we can kind of talk about that. I'm gonna go ahead and mute you, Sean. Thanks for the honesty.
You bet.
What are the suggestions for helping us manage our schedule? Anyone? You guys are going, no, I don't want to talk. I know he's recording this. So here's some other suggestions for we talk about. Number one is to plan ahead and have it in your calendar. Number two is the night before you're going to prospect, pull your list the night before instead of the day that you're going to make the calls. There's a shift in your head that goes on when it's you doing the task versus doing it the night before. The night before, it's still a theory. Theoretically, tomorrow, I'm going to be making these calls. So you're not necessarily emotionally attached to it as you are just before you're going to make the calls. And your brain is going to want to move to the path of least resistance, which is whatever's easiest and most comfortable to do. So the morning of or the day of, when you go to pull your list, your brain is going to purposely distract you to prevent you from doing what is going to be intimidating or uncomfortable. The night before, it won't do that. You'll notice if you pull your list the night before, your list will be bigger. It'll be a larger geography. You won't remove people's names from it, right? Where if you do it right before you call, what do is we tend to narrow the list down to a very small number of people. And we know through our ratios that the number of people that we're calling is going to be equal to the number of listings that we get. And so we don't want to narrow the list too narrow, or therefore we don't get the result that we want to get. Any questions on that before I move to the next topic?
Hey, Sean, it's Elliot. Can you hear me?
Elliot, yeah. How are you, man?
Good. Hey, I got a couple things in reference to what he said, and the biggest thing that's going to step in, and I would say, if you don't have somebody to leverage off of or with, would be to find an accountability partner. Where you guys are checking in daily, again, role playing, or doing it together. I mean, whether, obviously got to have your space. At the same time, I mean, then you just hunker down, and dial for an hour. And that's the other thing too. I think it's that old adage, right? How do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? And sometimes it's just keeping it simple. And, I'm going to hammer out 30 minutes of calls for 3 days, then I'm going to grow it to 45, then I'm going to grow it to an hour. So you're expanding and not, properly by stretching and not necessarily ripping. So that would be, certainly one way to take a look at it. And then of course the other thing is get those systems in place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And that's one thing, like Sean was so honest and transparent this morning. He says, I did 12 calls. That's awesome, right? And a lot of times we'll beat ourselves up, right? We'll say, well, that wasn't good enough, or I wanted to do 50 or whatever. And therefore we don't repeat the pattern because the experience at the end of the pattern was negative, right? And when we get negative experience, we don't do it again, right? So if you say, like you just said, Elliot, is, man, if you do 12 one day, then the next day, you know what? If you do 13 the next day, freaking A, you did better. And if you do 14 the next day, you did better. But when we set the expectations so high, right, then we end up beating ourselves up when we can't fulfill those expectations, right?
Absolutely. Well, and having the schedule like you were referring to just a minute ago, with everybody that's got similar plans and goals as you, that you're able to lean on, and they kind of hold you accountable. To me, that's when tremendous results happen. I often share with my team and my company members that I swear that I think part of the reason why I've set all this up is so I have a tremendously high level of accountability.
Interesting. So you set your business up to force accountability on you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Hey, how many of your agents do you think thrive on accountability?
That was for you, Elliot.
I'd love to say 100%. Well, let me speak specifically about our calling, since this is what we're kind of referring to.
That are successful. How many of your successful agents thrive on accountability?
Yeah, all of them thrive off of accountability. Being completely upfront, and not everybody always loves accountability. Sometimes you'll get pushback in certain meetings. However, at the end of the day, when the results are more important than their objection to facing the accountability, that's when great things really start to happen. So to answer you directly, all of them thrive off of accountability.
Thank you.
Thank you, man. Okay, so one of the things I wanted to cover today, just to shift gears a little bit, is I look at, I tend to look at business in a series of ebb and flows. And one of the challenges that we have as agents is we have a lot of expansionary and contractionary things occurring in not only our business, but in our lives and within the economy as well as our environment. And so in that, it kind of looks like this. In real estate, because a lot of us start off as an individual agent, you have the ebbs and flows of your energy, right? Where there's times where you feel up to the task, and there's times when your energy is drained. For instance, I just came back from a 3-day weekend of camping with my sons, and I didn't think about real estate once on 3 days. Okay? If somebody would ask me what you did for a living, I would have had to think about it before I could answer. Right? It was one of those weekends where I just disconnected. And on Sunday night, I was literally excited to go back to work. I was driven and fueled because my energy was replenished, right? So I was in a good spot. So our energy ebbs and flows. The economy ebbs and flows. And so the way that affects us in real estate is with interest rates and appreciation of home values. And so as it goes up and as it goes down, it fluctuates the market. Seasons in the market can ebb and flow. So as well as maybe even natural disasters can ebb and flow a real estate market. And then you, of course, have the economy in general. What I wanted to talk about today, though, is really seasonality. And if you think of business, no different than a business of a shop in a mall, right? If you owned a retail store in a shopping mall, and we know that in a mall, in a shopping environment, there's seasonality to their sales cycle. And their sales cycle usually begins to occur around November, right? Between November 24th and December 26th, right? That's their sales cycle. And in fact, many stores in the mall actually do almost 50% of their sales in a 6-week period of their sales cycle. Well, real estate is very similar. Our cycle ebbs and flows also. It goes up with the seasons, and it's going to be different for everyone. But for the most part, seasonality in America, right? We have one thing that's common is for most in America, there are holidays in the later part of the year, and people don't want to move during these holidays, be it Hanukkah or Christmas season or whatever, Thanksgiving. People don't want to move during those, and they want to kind of hunker down in the winter time and move less frequently. So therefore, our seasonality is there's an urgency for people that didn't have an opportunity to move in the springtime right now. And it almost causes a desperation in the market that we can kind of use to our advantage. So that's what I want to talk about today, is truly the opportunity from right now, right, being August, right, the middle of August right now, until about October 15th. There's a massive opportunity of people that have made the decision or the goal to move in 2015. And they're realizing right now that that opportunity is slipping through their fingers. Because if they don't get their house under contract within the next 2 months, they're not going to move until 2016. This creates massive opportunity for us, massive urgency in the market, and it gives you a great opportunity to convert and close if you're focused on the opportunity. It would look like this. Most real estate agents are kind of head in the sand, right? But we're going to be kind of looking down the pipe, right? We're looking down the future to say, okay, what is going to occur right now in order for a home to be sold and closed prior to November 25th, or say third week in November, right, which would be Thanksgiving, in order for a home to be sold and closed, by what date would it have to go or to be under contract? Well, in most of America, it's about 30, 35, 40 days. So we can subtract that from November 25th, and that puts us at October 15th. So we know that for most people that choose to sell and be closed and moved in prior to Thanksgiving, they have to be under contract by October 15th. Now, if the average days on market in your area is, let's say most of America for the most part is around 45 to 60 days, that means that they're going to have their house on the market right now in order to achieve that sale by October 15th. This is creating massive urgency. It's bringing the pain forward in their mind. So your conversations with your sellers right now isn't, let's go ahead and get your house on the market and price it correctly, and price it. We'll see how the market accepts it. Right now, the conversation is, you need to price it right now, or you're running the risk of not selling this year. Okay? And that urgency is going to help them overcome the obstacles of their objections, like, but I want to net more money, right? Because their desire to net more money may be in conflict with their desire to move this year. This occurs all the time, right? I heard an example this week of a seller who, at the very end, the buyer began complaining about the condition of the property, and the buyer was threatening to walk away even after the inspection. And the seller did not want to deal with the house being put back on the market. So the seller conceded and dropped the price an additional $10,000 just to close to accommodate this buyer and the convenience of not having to wait to move. So here's a great example of a seller that at one point was determined that price was the most important thing, but when truly faced with the decision between price and convenience or timing, chose convenience or timing over price. So let's have a dialogue about that and about how you can use this information to help create not only more appointments for you, but converting those appointments into contracting with you. And raise your hand if you'd like to talk. All right, Sean, you're on.
How you see that being true even in Denver, and with the mentality of the whole Denver market, and everybody thinks it's the hottest market, and they think they want to do top dollar. I mean, I've seen several houses that are overpriced, and I think agents are just overpricing it because they think they're going to get it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which leads into what you talked about before, how the expireds are going up because they're pricing them wrong.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right, Sean. The perception may be that the Denver market is bulletproof because of some of the national news and the way people talk about the market. But if we provide evidence to them and we show them, look, there were 1,400 expireds in the past 2 months. Do you want to be one of those? Right? And remember, a lot of the people that we're contacting right now have already expired. So we're not having to tell them the evidence. They're living the evidence.
They still want to go home in their home.
Right. And go ahead. Go ahead, Sean.
Oh, I was just saying thank you. Yeah, that makes sense. It's crazy what some of these agents are doing anyway.
Well, and that creates opportunity for us. And I believe that we're going to see a massive spike and not just limited to the Denver markets or the Colorado markets or just the areas that there is, it's a seller's market. But I think nationally we're going to see a massive spike in expireds. Consumer confidence in general is down right now because of what you're seeing on the news nationally with the stock market. Petroleum's dropping. That's creating layoffs. They revalued the China dollar. That's going to reposition a lot of the money coming into America. So there's a lot of things in the news that are creating uncertainty. And uncertainty erodes consumer confidence, which then eventually will erode confidence about offer price. Joni had a comment.
I was just going to say, even in Denver, those posh people also want to be home they want to have a new home for Thanksgiving. Like they want to be home for Thanksgiving. So timing is still of the essence for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, anybody else want to comment on maybe how you're going to use this strategy or a similar strategy to help create urgency right now to get people to begin listing homes? Because if I want you to think about it this way. If your goal this year was to sell, say, 20 homes, and right now you've closed let's say you've closed 13 so far. Are you on target? What do you think? If your goal was to close 20 and you've closed 13 so far, are you on target? The answer is no. Because if you do the math, if we know that the average transaction takes between 30 and 40 days to close, you would actually have to have more closed right now, probably closer to 15 or 16, in order to get them all closed by the end of the year. So you're actually behind schedule. Because our seasonality, you have to produce and get them closed prior to December 31st. And we know we have a massive fallout rate towards the end of the year. Meaning fallout, meaning listings that choose not to stay on the market during the period of November 25th through January, pretty much through January period. So because we have a lot of people that pull during that time, it affects our ratios. And so if you only have 13 closed so far, in order for you to hit your goal, you would actually have to list and get pended 7 transactions in the next 60 days in order to achieve your goal of closing 20 by the end of the year. The reason I share this with you is to create urgency. Every one of you has the ability and the opportunity right now to list and close those 10 homes or those 8 to 10 homes by the end of the year. Every single one of you. There's no reason or there's nothing limiting you from the possibility of being able to get those listings within the next 4 to 6 weeks. Okay? You can easily set up 4 appointments a week with an average conversion of 60%. Okay? That's an average conversion is 60% on appointment in order to achieve that goal of getting 6 to 8 listed in the next 4 to 6 weeks. And in fact, you have 8 weeks. Okay, let's hear some questions and comments on that statement. That was a pretty tough one and very direct. Any questions or comments? Elliot, you have any comments to that? Was that too tough?
No, I thought it was honestly it was well covered. So
say that again. You cut out a little bit.
I said it was well covered. I don't have much.
I can't hear you, man. You're fading in and out. You sound like Max Headroom.
I said no. I don't have much on that.
Okay. Do you agree with that statement that everybody has the ability to list 8 to 10 homes within the next 8 weeks?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's getting clear on their formula, like we work on all the time of how many dials to how many contacts to appointments, how many appointments to listings.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, cool. If there's no other questions or comments, this is what I want to leave you with at the end of this webinar today, is get focused on the opportunity in front of you, okay? This opportunity will close in the next 60 days. Prospecting expireds, FSBOs, and neighborhoods in November and December is a different game than prospecting right now. In November and December, your conversation is, let's talk about next year when we put your house on the market, okay? You're banking listings. If you have bills that are coming up in the next 6 months, which I don't know about you, but when I don't pay my utility bill, they turn it off. That bill, I've been trying to pay that one off for 20 years. Those bills keep coming month over month over month. So if you have bills, and I know you do, in the next 6 months, you must focus on the opportunity right now in the next 60 days to start getting listings, get them priced correctly, and get them under contract in the next 2 months in order to achieve your goals by the end of the year. That's what I'm going to leave you with. You guys have a great week. We'll talk next week.
Or can you talk to me? Just repeat what you said about sharing the market turning.